The next vitamin we shall be talking about is vitamin E. Vitamin E's function as an antioxidant. That means it binds to free radicals. Now, its job is to protect red blood cells. It also prevents peroxidation of fatty acids on cell membranes. Now, LDL, low-density lipoproteins, usually carry cholesterol. So what happens is if there's a deficiency in vitamin E, now these LDL receptors are predisposed to free radicals, okay? So let's say this is an LDL, okay? It's carrying cholesterol. Oh, guys, I know I had to interrupt the lecture, but there's one problem. You know, you've been watching my YouTube videos for a while now, and we have one challenge here in my channel. You know, only 52% of people who are actually watching my YouTube channel are subscribed. The other 48%, unfortunately, they have not. Now, I understand, like, you might be busy and you're watching a lot of YouTube videos, but can you help me grow my channel so that I can be able to bring you more lecture videos just like this, so you'll be able to learn education for free? So all I'm asking you today is just, let's bump up the number and let's bump it up to about 99% of all our subscribers. So if you haven't clicked the link right now to like, subscribe to my channel, and share my content, do me just a favor. Click the like and subscribe button so that you can be able to see my new videos when I release them every single time on my YouTube channel. Listen, this is my gift to you as a free content creator, and you can help my channel also grow so that we can also help millions and millions of people all around the world. Listen, smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll really appreciate it. Thank you. When it gets exposed to free radicals, it's going to release its cholesterol content, and this cholesterol can go inside blood vessels and deposit in them. And what happens? We know that when LDLs and cholesterol start to deposit inside endothelium, that's the beginning of atherosclerosis. Right? And remember, once this atherosclerotic plaque forms, it can rupture, eventually thrombose, and cause ischemia. And this could be in the setting of acute myocardial infarction, strokes, right? So this vitamin E's job is very important to protect that peroxidation, right, of those fatty acids on also cell membranes. Now, let's talk about what happens to patients that develop deficiency in vitamin E. Well, how do you become deficient in vitamin E? Well, the only way we get vitamin E is through our mouth. So if a patient has malnutrition, they develop vitamin E. Or if it's a premature infant, right? If a baby is born prematurely and they can't get enough vitamin E, they can get deficient. Also, if you have fat malabsorption, remember, vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin. Just the vitamin A, D, E, and K. So anything that compromises the malabsorption of fat into the body, fats or fatty vitamins, will prevent this vitamin to be absorbed into the body, leading to vitamin E deficiency. So what eventually happens? What do we see clinically? This predisposed patients to develop hemolytic anemia, from the word heme, lysis of hemoglobin, leading to anemia, decrease in hemoglobin and hematocrit. So let's take a look at a red blood. That's a nice, beautiful red blood cell, right? This is a red blood cell. And what happens is when they get exposed to free radicals, okay? When they get exposed to free radicals, they start to lyse open. And when they lyse open, the term we call this is acanthocytosis. Acanthocytosis. which means a red blood cells that is torn apart. And that's what the diagram is showing on the board. That is hemolytic anemia, because these red blood cells are susceptible to free radicals. Hey, real quick, before you continue watching your lectures, are you struggling with pharmacology? Do you hate mechanism of actions of drugs? Do you hate side effects? Do you not know how to memorize or know how to be able to use the right drug to treat conditions on your USMLE exam? Listen, I've got something special for you. Now, this is not for everyone, only students who are struggling with pharmacology. I have created a free USMLE masterclass specifically addressing how to answer pharmacology questions, how to be able to remember all the drug names, their classes, and also know how to treat the right condition on your board exam. This is so easy. This is the exact blueprint that I personally use to be able to answer all my pharm questions and got all those questions right on my board exam. Now I'm a practicing physician in emergency medicine, and now I know exact drugs to use to treat all my patients. And I want you to get the exact blueprint today. I have a free USMLE Pharmacology Masterclass where I'm going to be showing you those exact secrets that I personally use. All you simply have to do is grab a copy of my workbook and also register for my free Pharmacology Masterclass. Inside the class, I'm going to bring out step-by-step, easy mnemonics to remember drug classes, exactly what they always test on pharmacology questions on the board exam. And I'm going to also show you how to be able to identify concepts that the USMLE exam writers are actually looking for, so you can use the right drugs to be able to treat the right conditions. Listen, it's so packed with so much information that you are going to love. All you have to do right now is click the link in the description below and grab my copy of my free pharmacology workbook and also register for my pharmacology masterclass. And you are going to absolutely love it. Click the link right now, grab my free gifts for you, and register for the free pharm class.
My name is Barbara Badio. I was born in Haiti, and then I moved to the United States in my teens. But I always knew I was interested in medicine, so I luckily found a program in the United States. It's called Sophie Davis. So it's a 7-year accelerated BSMD program. So you do your 3rd year of undergrad and then the 4 years of medical school. So I've been in that school for 8 years now, because I took a gap year, and then now I matched to pediatrics at Stony Brook University in Long Island, New York. I feel like personally for me, because of how rigorous my program was, I feel like a lot of time I was just cramming information but not really understanding them, and it kind of hit hard when I had to sit and study for step 1, and I was like, oh my god, I know these things but I don't really know them. I know some information. I just felt like I had a lot of gaps in my learning, and so I struggled with step 1. I took all the NBMEs that was available and I failed all of them. Did not pass one. I would take them over. I would try different things. And then to the point was my school had a deadline for when I was supposed to take the test. And because I couldn't pass a single NBME at that point, they were like, all right, we're going to have to dismiss you for a year, figure it out. We're not sure if we're going to take you back. So I was really stressed. So at that point, no one was offering me any resources. I didn't know where to go. How do I find I just didn't know what to do. So I ended up just studying on my own. I took a year off, and I was just learning Patoma, going back to everything. And I took step 1, but I didn't do well. I got a 205, which is not that great. And then for step 2, I found out I took it because my school had another deadline to take it. And I was like, you know what, I'm not taking another year off. I'm just going to take it. Whatever happens. And then I failed it. And that was the worst experience ever, because it was right around interview season. So I had already submitted all my applications, and people were calling back to me. And then I think after I got my first interview, and then that's when I got the letter, you failed step 2. And I was like, oh my god, I'm screwed. I didn't know what else to do. So I remember I went back to my school, guys, what can I do? Now I had a low step 1 score. Now I failed step 2. And I already sent my applications in. So what am I supposed to do? And they're like figure it out on your own. So I was just searching things up, and then Smash USMLE just popped up. And I remember it was the day after I failed, I called. I signed up, but I don't know how Dr. Adesina got my number, but we had a phone call conversation. I was just telling him, like, crying on the phone, like, oh my God, like the worst thing happened to me. Like, I don't know what to do. And like, he really helped me through that time. So that was my experience. The most important thing that helped me in the program was like a sort of like accountability, because at that point, like, not only like I was starting interviews, I was still on my clinical rotations. Like, I had like a lot of different things going on, and I still had to now study again for a test that I thought I had passed. So like, I had all these things going at once, and it's easy to just be like, all right, I'll just study tomorrow, like just push it back. But I felt like, because I had a coach, and like, I remember like the first meeting I had with Dr. Addison, we made like a whole schedule that sort of like helped me be on track. Because like, I don't know, after you fail a test, like you just feel like you just don't want to study anymore. Like, I was kind of over it. I was like, do I even want to do medicine? Like, like I didn't have the energy to study, to go on. Like, I just wanted to lay in my bed and just eat and like cry. I don't know. But like, I just felt like, because I was in the program, like, I had the coach, like he always made sure, like, if he hadn't heard me in like a long time, like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, are you doing your questions? Like, how are you keeping up? Did you take a exam yet to test to see if you're improving? So I felt like it was definitely a good kickstart to get me motivated again and to study. So yeah. Yeah, so the second time I took it, I got a 224. So yeah, basically a improvement from failing. Yeah. I ended up getting 18 interviews. Yeah. So I matched at Stony Brook Children's Hospital in Long Island, New York. They were my second choice. Like, failure is gonna happen. Like, if not now, then someday. But I think it helps you become stronger, because like, at first, yeah, you're gonna feel horrible and for like days or weeks, but you just have to get back up again and keep fighting and keep pushing, because if that's something you really want to, then you don't want to have any like regrets. So, and also like, don't listen to anyone. Like, 'cause I've met people, they failed step one, step two, and step three, and they're doctors today. So I feel like your story is yours. So don't let anybody, any statistics, like, stop you from achieving what you want to do.
That's the first deficiency you need to know for the boards. The second deficiency is neurodysfunction. Very, very important. This is the structure of a spinal cord cross section, okay? And what you're looking at on the board here is the posterior column of the spinal cord. This area is the posterior or dorsal column. And you know from basic neurology that this area, the cuneatus and the gracilis, the fasciculus gracilis and cuneatus, are responsible for proprioception, which is a position of my hand in space, right? If I close my hand and I can, oh, my hand is right on the right? That's how I know, because I can determine my hand in free space. That's proprioception. That's a perception to be able to know. That's how our body knows where we are. And also vibration. So if I put a vibratory turning fork or anything that vibrates on your skin, the sensory nerves that pick it up go through the fasciculus, cuneatus, and gracilis, and those are part of your dorsal column. When patients have vitamin E deficiency, this dorsal column gets demyelinated. Those nerves that are running through get demyelinated, so these patients have loss of position and vibratory sensation. But that's not just it. Remember the dorsal root ganglion, right, where all the cell bodies of the peripheral nerves that are coming from the periphery are all coming into this dorsal root ganglia. That's where they all meet and eventually go into the dorsal part of the spinal cord. Patients get peripheral neuropathy by damaging this dorsal root ganglion, and since they are responsive for sensory, right? Remember, sensory in, motor out. Sensory in, motor out. Once they get damage to the sensory aspect, this patient develop paresthesias. numbness, tingling, right? Because they don't have any sensation going into their spinal cord anymore. Also, the spinal cerebellar tract. Whenever I hear cerebellar in medicine, I'm like, cerebellar balance, cerebellar balance. That's how I think about it, okay? So the cerebellum allows us to maintain our balance, okay? Unfortunately, if the tracts running through the spinal cerebellar tracts are damaged, patients are going to develop ataxia, which means imbalanced gait. You like tell patients to stand and they're kind of staggering because they cannot maintain their gait. That's a gait dysfunction. Okay? So this is vitamin E deficiency. Now the boards love to get you because that's not the only vitamin that can cause this. Vitamin B12 has the exact same symptomology. So when you see this lesion in this is the lateral corticospinal tracts, the dorsal column, the spinal cerebellar tracts lesions, think B12 and vitamin E. Vitamin E, vitamin B12. Those are the two vitamins you must know for the boards that cause this kind of neuro dysfunction. Also, there's a disease called Friedreich's ataxia. Okay? Friedreich's ataxia, which is a mutation in a genetic mutation with overexpression of GAA repeats. Okay, GAA repeats. They have ataxia. Okay, they also have problems with vibration, sensation, and position. So that's another disease pathology the boards can throw at you. So remember, Friedreich's ataxia can mimic, also look similar to vitamin E deficiency. Also, these patients can also develop muscle weakness. Okay? Now, there's one more caveat. The way you remember vitamin E is because E stands for erythrocyte. So you know that's why they're developing hemolytic anemia. Okay? So, let me just make sure I spell Friedreich's correctly. Friedreich's. Okay? That's Friedreich's ataxia. All right? Vitamin E also can cause damage to the retina. This is known as retinitis pigmentosa. Let's take a look at the word retinitis. Inflammation of the retina. So this is the retina. So the eye has got the sclera. It has the choroid. And it has that red part, which is the retina, okay? When patients have vitamin E deficiency, they can get inflammation of that retina with a lot of pigments basically depositing from damage to the retina, and that can lead to retinitis pigmentosa. So 3 key things to know for vitamin E. It can cause hemolytic anemia. It can cause neurodysfunction affecting the posterior and dorsal column. Okay, leading to ataxia, causes loss of proprioception, vibration, okay? And paresthesias. And it can cause retinitis pigmentosa. That's all the key important points for vitamin E for the board. Thank you for watching this lecture video. I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below about what you think about this lecture. And also, if you want to watch more lecture videos like this, click right here to watch more lecture videos like this. And don't forget to like and subscribe. You rock.